And happy Tuesday, February 7th, 2023, and welcome to another edition of what I like to call the Isolation Cabin. I am your host, Kurt Cadet, the vegan you believe in the flesh as always, coming to you live from a sunny but cold day here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm about to break you guys off with all these isolation issues we all deal with on a daily basis, whether we cause it ourselves, whether others cause us to feel that way, and what we can do to ultimately resolve those issues and get back to a better, happier place in our lives. So the kind of isolation I want to talk about today is the isolation that happens to ourselves when we become depressed, when we go through a bunch of situations in life that are tragic, that are unfortunate, that are sudden, and it rocks us to our core so hard that we just get to the point where we don't want to be around anybody, where we don't want to go out, where we don't want to socialize, and we just want to, in a sense, I guess, crawl into a corner and die. And as someone who's also been through this form of isolation before, actually as recent as about a year ago or so, I've got to tell you, it's probably one of the hardest ones to overcome. Because I talked about last week about isolation, where you self-sabotage yourself and you burn bridges and you cut people off for no reason and all that. And while it's not easy to overcome that also, at the same time, that also comes from a part of yourself where you need to check yourself and the things you do wrong. But in a situation like this, it's a little more complicated because the isolation comes from, sad and tragic events. And that shit is completely understandable. It's hard to deal with like a sudden death in the family, or if you lose your business, you lose your job, falling out with a close one. Those kind of things can really mess you up, and it can take you a very, very long time to bounce back from them. But the thing you have to remember is that there's only so long you can stay in that depressed and isolated place. Because granted, it's okay to stay there for a couple days, couple months, I get it, it happens. But there has to come a point where you want to get out and start living again. Because as much as those things suck that they happen, as much as they can rock us to our core, as much as they can make us not want to live, by doing that, we're letting those things win. We're letting those things get the better of us. And we're letting those things kill us slowly. And I urge you, if you're in that position right now, if you're in that place right now, to find a way, somehow, someday, it doesn't have to necessarily be today per se, but pick yourself back up. Pull yourself together. Because you can't do that depressed shit forever. You can't. And especially if it's a situation where you lost a loved one, that loved one that you lost would not want you to go on living your life in that kind of way. Yeah, because sad things happen. Horrible things happen to us. Bad luck happens. And it sucks. It's horrible. I wish there were a way some of us could avoid it, but unfortunately, that's not the way the world works. And when those things do happen, there has to come a point where you move past the mourning period. Because like I've said on episodes in the past, for all the negative and fucked up bullshit there's out there in the world, there is also a lot of good and happy shit out there in the world worth enjoying, worth celebrating, and worth getting yourself lost in. And I'm telling you, you do not want to miss out on any of that shit. Even if you are deep down depressed and having a hard time overcoming a tragedy or a string of bad luck. Yeah, because just sitting in your house all day, watching TV and not being active, not moving around, not even talking to your friends or family on the phone, it's mad whack, bro. It's mad whack in every way imaginable. And hey, I love TV as much as the next person. I admit I binge watch my shows here and there, but to sit inside the house the whole day doing that shit for days, weeks, months at a time, it's a bottomless pit of misery. That's what it is. It is a bottomless pit of misery. And unfortunately, it happens to all of us at one time or another. Everybody suffers from depression, no matter how old you are, no matter how young you are. That shit hits you at one point or another. And granted, I don't judge people for dealing with their situation that way, but there has to come a point where you move past that phase. Because living your life that way the rest of your life, there's no way in hell that you will be happy, that you will be fulfilled, and that you will feel any sense of joy whatsoever. And by continuing to live your life in that way, where you just don't go out, don't hang out with friends, don't hang out with family, don't get together with them, and not even for things that they did wrong, that is also another form of self-sabotage. Because I know it's a running theme we have throughout this show, but no matter how independent you are, and in this case, no matter how depressed you are, eventually, everybody needs somebody. And you don't want to get to a point where you've just lost all contact with everybody, don't want to talk to anybody, and pretty much all you have is yourself, your couch, and your television. Not the path you want to go down. And if you do go down that path and continue to go down that path, I promise you, you will not like where you end up. So I'm telling you, if you're in this phase right now and you want to get out of it and you know it's not healthy for you, you got to start doing the work. And what I mean by doing the work is getting out of your comfort zone. Because being isolated, in many ways, it has a lot to do with being trapped in your own comfort zone. Whether it's a routine, whether it's a habit, whether it's your diet, whatever it may have you. That comfort zone shit can also be another form of isolation. And people eventually, after a while, they get comfortable being isolated, being alone, and not having any relationships with other people. And if you're in that position now, you need to get out of that comfort zone and do it as fast as you can. Because I'm telling you, doing that shit is going to save your life. And the way you can go about getting out of your comfort zone is something as simply as just going outside. Doesn't have to be for a long time. You could go out for a walk. You could go out play basketball. You can go out to the movies or walk to the grocery store and back. But I've just learned that simply going outside, even if it's just for a few minutes, will do you a lot of good. Sunlight, fresh air, whatever it may have you, just getting that outside feel, that'll bring a lot of good feelings and a lot of good vibes towards you. And as small of a step as it may look like, it is one step closer towards the right direction. And that shit is definitely worth doing and worth celebrating once you do it. So also, in addition to, going outside, go out more and go to places where you can socialize. I know it's scary. And I know the easy thing sometimes to do, especially if you've had a long day, is you just sit on the couch and binge watch some shit on Netflix or watch a movie or whatever have you. But eventually, you have to get to a point where you overcome that tired feeling, where you overcome that lazy feeling, and you push yourself to go out and push yourself to get out of that comfort zone and be around people. I'm not saying it's going to be easy in the beginning. There's definitely going to be a kind of adjustment period. I get that. But just doing it and doing it consistently, even if it's just once a week, eventually you will start to notice a difference. If you go out enough and do social activities enough, you'll start to notice that you, in turn, become more social and want to be more social. And the idea of just sitting at your house on Saturday night watching TV and doing nothing sounds like a fucking bore. And sounds like the last thing on earth you'd want to do with a Saturday night. Because, hey, I've been there. I've been there many times. And I admit, I am a homebody to a degree. I like to spend a lot of time at home. But I do realize that there's a time when I need to get out of the house. Whether it's going for a walk, whether it's going to a bar, whether it's going to a movie, whether it's going to a coworker's party or whatever it is. There comes a point where you just got to get out of the house and you got to be around people and you got to socialize. And that's another thing. I think another reason why people come to a point where they want to keep themselves isolated is because they just don't like people. And for whatever reason, they think all people who don't think like them or all people who aren't the same as them are bad or evil, aren't worth associating with. And honestly, it's kind of a red flag when you meet someone who just literally says they don't like people or they hate all people. Hey, look, I'm not a fan of every single last person on earth myself. There are a lot of people who I'm not fond of, I'm not a fan of, and I wouldn't fuck with. But it's not right, and it doesn't do you any favors to label every single last person on earth and every single last person you come across as that. Because I'm telling you, by doing that, you are cheating yourself out of so many good interactions and good relationships that you're going to kick yourself once you realize that's exactly what you've done. Because, hey, not all people are great, not all people are good, but trust me, the good ones, the cool ones, they're the ones worth talking to and the ones worth hanging out with. And the more you can do that shit, the better quality of life you will have. I promise. And yeah, also another thing you can do to get out of that comfort zone is just reach out. Take a chance. Call friends, call family members you haven't talked to a while, have a conversation with them, even if it's only for a few minutes. You can't just think that that person's gonna reach out to you and just wait around until they do so. Sometimes you have to go about reaching out to them, giving them a phone call, going to visit them, because they might feel that same way that you do. But the most important thing is just simply to break that ice. And if they don't respond back to you, then just move on to the next person. And the next person after that. And any other good activity you can do. Yeah, because you don't want to lose touch with people you care about, lose touch with people you were once close with just out of pride or just because, oh, they don't call me so I won't call them. Nah, like if you really want to talk to them, if you really want to have a conversation with them, or maybe plan a trip to go visit them for a weekend, just fucking reach out to them. That's all you got to do. You can call them, you can text them, you can FaceTime them, Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, whatever, but just reach out. If you really want to talk to someone, just reach out. I know it's not easy, especially if you're in a place where you've been isolated for such a long period of time. But when you make that first step to reach out, you make that first step towards maintaining a relationship, then you'll be pleasantly surprised at what results may come from it. And there's one thing I learned through going through these kind of different phases is that at the end of the day, no one's going to save you from that place. Not Batman, not Superman, not the president, not whatever mascot they put in that place. The only person you can rely on to dig yourself out of that isolated, depressed hole in your life is yourself. It all starts and it all ends with you. So you have two choices. You could either continue to stay isolated, continue to stay in your house, continue to not have any kind of relationships or any kind of social interactions with people, and in turn become more depressed and more unhappy along the way. Or you can say, hey, I don't want to live like this anymore. Hey, I want to start going out more. I want to start living my life. I want to actually talk to people, hang out with people, build relationships. And I want to do more with my life than just sit on the couch all day and watch TV. And do something to make that life a reality. Reach out to people you haven't talked to in a while. Go out more. Go to social settings. Go to a yoga class. Go to a workout class. Go to an acting class. Go to a freaking nightclub or a bar by yourself. Who the hell cares? Granted, it's not as fun as when you go with people, but just to go out and do that stuff, even if it's for an hour, I'm telling you, you will enjoy that a lot more than just sitting on your couch doing the same shit that you've been doing for months and sometimes years at a time. and actually taking the chance to do those things and go out, even if it is by yourself, will better your chances in meeting more people and better your chances in making more friends that you can go out with later on. But I'm telling you, where you have very little chance of that happening, and that's by just isolating yourself and locking yourself in your house. Because honestly, living your life that way is not living. Yeah, because there's a life out there for all of us to live. There's a life out there that all of us should make the most of. And there's people that we can enjoy it with and that we could be along on the ride with. That isn't worth screwing it up. There's a life out there for all of us to live. And if we don't take advantage of it, then it's going to pass us by. And then one day you'll wake up and wonder, where the fuck did all the time go? Well, you still have that time right now. No matter what people may tell you, no matter what people may say, no matter how old you are, it's never too late. It's never too late to make a change. And I urge you, if you're somebody that I've described in this podcast who does these kind of things, who isolates themselves to this degree, to the point where they don't want to go out, they don't want to do anything, I urge you, make that change. Because there's such a better and happier and overall better quality of life waiting for you on the other side of it. I promise. But you got to do the work. You got to put in the effort. And you've got to want it. You've got to want to live your life. You've got to want to make more friends. You got to want to go out. You got to want to have experiences. And I promise you, if you want those experiences bad enough and you are willing to step out of your comfort zone and do these things that I mentioned, then in a few months' time, you won't even recognize yourself. Well, I think I've said what I needed to say today for this episode of The Isolation Cabin. You could follow this podcast on Speaker. You could follow it on YouTube. You could follow it on SoundCloud. And if you want to follow me to just chat, talk about any of these topics I talked about today, you could follow me on my Facebook and Instagram, which is my first and last name, Kirk Cadet. Send me a holler, send me a shout out. And I promise you guys I'll be doing this for a very long time to come. So I hope you guys are here for me next week, where I continue to break down the issues dealing with isolation, what may cause it, and what we can do to overcome those things. So until next time, this is Kirk Cadet for another edition of The Isolation Cabin. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care.